All right, so you can see me up there and here. Okay. All right, well, thank you for being here today, and it's really lovely to be here and give this session. My name's Kylie, and I'm a lawyer at the Working Women's Centre. And yeah, we're here today to talk about some basic workplace rights in Australia and give you some information around what to expect when you're working here and what your entitlements are. So we will be going through a lot of information today. I've tried to make it as simple as we can, but I could talk all day about this kind of thing. So please, if you don't understand anything, please interrupt me and ask a question, or if you've got questions after, that's completely fine. So hopefully at the end of today, you'll know all the main points and you'll be able to go get some more information if you need to. That's okay. So making the slides here. Don't mind me. Oh, there we go. Firstly, I just wanted to acknowledge that the land we're on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people, and that we respect their elders past, present and emerging. And yeah, about the Working Women's Centre. So like I said, I'm a lawyer at the Working Women's Centre, and we're a non-government organisation. We're like a charity, a bit like the Red Cross, I guess. And we provide free and confidential information to women and vulnerable workers. So not just women, other genders and men as well, who aren't members of a union. So we've been around since 1979, and we've got funding from the government and some funding from the unions as well to basically help fill that gap for people that need advice about work but can't afford or don't know how to join a union. And yeah, the government bodies like the FERG Ombudsman, they give you general advice about workplace rights, but we can give you specialised legal advice and help represent you in claims if you need to. So we provide legal advice on things like when you're not getting paid properly, if you've been dismissed and it's not fair, discrimination and sexual harassment, all those kind of issues that workers experience in the workplace. And aside from the lawyers, there's also people that do workplace training to businesses, and we also try and run projects where we're identifying things that aren't fair for workers in the law and kind of raise awareness about those issues and try and make changes. So yeah, there's about about 10 of us now that work there. We're in Hindley Street, just in Station Arcade. So yeah, if you ever need to find us, that's where we are. So sorry, I'm having trouble with my there we go. Okay, so as I said, today we're going to be talking about employment basics in Australia. So we'll kind of look at where your rights come from, and then go into different kinds of jobs, and then have a think about how to identify if you're getting paid correctly, and where you can go for help if you need more information. So most fundamentally, it's good to know that all workers in Australia have minimum workplace rights, no matter what kind of work you do, whether you're on a visa, whether you're a young worker, an old worker. All workers have minimum workplace rights called the National Employment Standards. And also there's a national minimum wage as well. There's other rights as well that are really important to keep in mind. So workers in Australia, you have the right to be able to ask questions about your employment and raise workplace rights. So you're allowed to ask your boss if you don't think you're being paid properly, or tell your boss that you don't think it's safe, your workplace isn't safe, for instance. You're allowed to ask those things and stand up for yourself in the workplace, and it's illegal for the boss to take what they call adverse action against you, so fire you or cut your shifts or cut your pay. So there's a really fundamental right in Australia that workers have the right to stand up for themselves and make sure you're getting those minimum rights for yourself. So keep that in mind as we're going through. Whoops. So as I said, that the National Employment Standards, there's 11 minimum conditions, and I won't go into all of them because there's a lot and they're quite complicated, but they relate to minimum pay, that the maximum hours you can work, like your boss can only ask you to work up to 38 hours a week with your or more with your agreement. There's other things like the right to unpaid leave, like for caring reasons. So the right to ask for a flexible working arrangement. So again, these are quite, can be a bit technical in themselves, but in those sheets there that I've given you for the people in the room, they go into all of those national employment standards. So you can have a read of those afterwards, and for people online, you can look those up on the Fair Work Ombudsman site. So we will be going through some of these today, but just be aware, actually the next slide here is, oh goodness, why doesn't this work? There we go. Yes, there it is. So that's the Fair Work Information Statement, and that outlines those national employment standards and everything else that you need to know when you're starting work. And your employer is actually required to give that to you on your first day of work. So not all employers do, unfortunately, but you can find it, as I said, on the Fair Work Ombudsman site as well. And that information is available in other languages as well. So yeah, as I said, if you've got questions as we go through, please do feel free to.
Just
sure.
To inquire about the point you said that if I want to discuss that the company is not paying well or something, I should go to my boss or to HR.
Oh, good question. You can definitely go to your boss and say, sometimes bosses make mistakes, right? And it might just be a mistake that they haven't realized, and it can be easily fixed. But sometimes you do need to go, higher than your boss. And if you're in a big company, that might be HR. Or you might need to get advice from, us or a union or the Fair Work Ombudsman. So it really depends. And it depends on your workplace as well. Not all workplaces have HR. So generally, though, your boss is a good place to start. Yeah. But yeah, we can go into about how to make sure you're getting paid right a little bit later as well. Yeah. No worries. Oh goodness, this clicking thing is, no, I don't know why I can't click. There we go. All right. So there's other sources of rights, workplace rights as well. So like we've got the national employment standards there at the beginning. They're the fundamental rights, the minimum that applies to everyone. We then also have awards, and I'll explain that a bit more in a minute, but they're like legal documents that apply according to the type of work you do and the industry you work in. And there's also enterprise agreements, which are agreements between the workers at a business and the bosses, and usually unions help negotiate those. And of course, you can also have contracts, like you might have started a job and been asked to sign a contract, and that again might have some entitlements in it. But it's important to know that no matter what contract you sign, you can't get paid less than what you are legally entitled to under the award or the national employment standards. So for instance, over lockdown, we had a lot of international students who were really desperate for work, and they were agreeing to work for, $10 an hour, which is well below the minimum pay rate. But even though they said, yes, I'll take that money, I need that money, that's illegal, and we're able to help them with an underpayment claim to get what they should have got paid, which is the minimum wage for the kind of work they were doing. So just remember, it's a good idea to read your contract, be aware of your awards and everything, make sure what your rights are. But if you find that you've agreed to something that isn't right, don't worry, you can still get help and advice about it.
I think the minimum wages is $26.
Yeah, I think you're right. I've got it in a slide in a minute. I think it's, yeah, $26.73 for a casual worker and 21. Oh gosh, you're testing my memory. It is in the slide.
No,
yeah.
No, but
yeah,
in case
correct.
that, as you said, that somebody like students, international students, where they want to work in $10 or something like this.
Yeah.
Is it illegal for them also, for the students to work, for example, to work for $10 per hour?
Yeah, it's illegal for the bosses to pay them $10 an hour. So the law recognizes that sometimes people have to agree to jobs that, you know, that are not paid properly. It's not the worker's fault though. The worker just needs some money to live, right? So it's illegal for the bosses to pay them less than
for the boss only.
Yeah.
Mean, for bosses, but for student or anybody else, if they accept, it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of legality or.
Yeah, they're not going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
The workers won't get in trouble ever. So yeah, it's on the bosses. The bosses are the one that have to pay properly. A very good question though. Yeah, good point.
So
yeah.
Is that working for any kind of works, like some work that I have done in my past? It was a restaurant.
Yes.
And they just paid $12 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And the boss was involved to all of these things, and they didn't ask for any paperwork and didn't give us any paperwork, any contract or anything.
Yeah.
That we don't have any proof that we worked there, and they give us that much money because they paid us on cash.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is that the thing is working for those people as well? Like we can.
Yeah.
Tell, because there is a boss, they are involved in these things. So where we should go and ask that it's not fair, like because during after a lockdown, it was they are saying it's not busy. That's why just one worker works like for every single thing. Still they paid just $12 an hour.
Yeah, that does not sound right at all. So I encourage you to give us a call and we can talk with you individually about your workplace and what you got paid. Even if you don't have pay slips or records, that's okay. We can, you can still put in a claim. So, but it's probably best we speak with you individually about that. And the good thing to know is you can go back up to 6 years. So if you were in that job less than 6 years ago, you can still put in a claim and try and get some money.
Yeah, because they are like kind of refusing a lot of rules.
Yeah.
They are saying this is our private restaurant.
Right.
Whatever we want, we can pay you if you want this job. Because sometimes the people, they need a job. They need any kind of job.
Yeah.
Especially during after a lockdown, it was very hard to find a good job.
Yeah.
And they just paid less money and we work a lot in there.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah.
No, it's not right. And like I said, it's not your fault that you needed a job, even if I only paid $12 an hour. But it doesn't matter if it's so-called a private business or what's going on. It doesn't matter. You're working in Australia, you should get those minimum pay rates. Yeah, so I'll give you my card afterwards and we can give you an appointment and have a chat about it more. Yeah. Hello there, how are you going? No, not at all. Sorry for those online, we just had a couple more people join. But yeah, look, I'm just going through some of the basic workplace rights in Australia. My name's Kylie. Please feel free to ask any questions as we go along. But yeah, there'll be more time for questions after as well. So I'll get back into the slides. I was just talking about how there's the national employment standards that are the minimum rights for everyone in Australia, including the minimum wage, which we were just having a discussion about. But I wanted to go next to awards. So in Australia, there's a number of different, they're called awards, and they're legal documents that the Fair Work Commission has a look over, and they outline the minimum pay rates and conditions of employment, depending on what industry you work in and what kind of job you do. So for instance, we were just talking about the restaurant. If you're working in a restaurant, there's a restaurant award, which sets out the minimum rates of pay for someone in a restaurant. And it might be, for instance, someone collecting dirty dishes and doing the washing. They will have one pay rate, but someone who's managing staff and opening and closing the shop, they'll be entitled to a higher rate of pay. And all that is set out in the restaurant award. So there's many different types of awards for all the different kinds of work that people can do. And as I said, there can also be enterprise agreements, which are a bit different. They're an agreement between a worker and the bosses at a business, a group of workers, and contracts as well. But let's focus on awards because they're really the fundamental things that set out all your rights. So, okay, so I think we'll be going into that a little bit later. Actually, I might just skip ahead because I want to talk about how to find the award. There we go. So the awards are on the Fair Work Ombudsman site. So that information has got many different languages available within this tool that you can see here. So what you can do, you can go on the Fair Work Ombudsman site to this pay and conditions tool. You can type in your job title and it will come up with your correct award and some common rates of pay and everything. So it's a really good site to have a look at. And as I said, it's available in lots of different languages as well. So I'll skip back again. And I just wanted to go through as well some of the different kinds of job types in Australia. As I said at the beginning, that I can talk about this all day, and I know I'm going through things quite quickly, but I'm just trying to give you a bit of an idea of all how the land lays, so to speak. So employees, that's really what most workers are in Australia. Employees work for wages. Your boss pays you wages, and you're usually directed how to do the work, usually go to a place of business to do the work. And that means you've got these entitlements under the awards. So there are different kinds of work as well, like a contractor or a subcontractor. And sometimes bosses are tricky and tell you to get an ABN or a business number and try to make it appear that you're actually running your own business when in fact you're really an employee doing the work they tell you to do. So again, if you're in that situation, definitely call us. But in terms of being an employee, you can be part-time or full-time or casual. So when we were saying before about the minimum rate, that was for a casual. So if you're part-time or full-time, you've got a certain set of rights, as in you get paid sick leave, you should get annual leave, and you usually have a set number of hours a week. So you've entered into a job, the boss has said, right, these are your hours for the week, they're the same every week, and you know, if you're sick, you can ring up and get paid for your sick days. Whereas casual employees, they're where it's flexible, which can be good for you and the business. So that's usually where your boss will say, when are you available this week? And you'll say, you'll give your days, and then it can be a lot more irregular. So you're not committed to working the same hours every week. It's up to you whether you say yes or no to a shift, and you know, the employer hasn't promised to give you a number of shifts a week. Does that make sense? Yes. So people familiar with that? Yeah? Okay, so if you're a casual, you don't have that commitment to ongoing work. So you don't get paid annual leave or sick leave, but that's why you get that higher rate of pay. So you get what's called a casual loading, which is 25% more than the base rate of someone who's a full-time employee. So that's how it kind of evens out a little bit. And again, if you have a look, the Fair Work information statements there's one for casuals as well, and it goes through what rights a casual gets. Oh yeah, so just a bit more about what a contractor is. So I think that the main thing to remember is if your boss asks you to get an ABN, you really have to be sure for yourself that you're running your own business, okay? So if you have an ABN, you should be setting your own rate of pay, you should be sending invoices, you should really be in control of the work you do and who you do it for. So like I said, sometimes employees, especially in cleaning or industries like that, they'll say, go off, get an ABN, I'll pay you this much. And really, they're just trying to get out of paying you tax and the wages that you need. So just be very careful. Well and good if you want to start your own business, but if your boss asks you to get an ABN, call us for advice, okay? Yeah?
Should we ask for this ABN just to hide some illegal, like the paid salary or something? You mean like this? You will use it?
Yeah, yep. So they'll say, so when they're doing their bookkeeping, they don't have to pay superannuation, they don't have to withhold tax. All they do is pay you, whatever they've agreed, and it might be less than the minimum wage as well. So if you're a contractor, you're setting your own rates of pay. You're not entitled to the minimum rates under the award because it's different. So that's why it's important to know if you're an employee, because if you're an employee, you get all those minimum rights. But if you're running your own business, then those minimum employee rights don't apply to you. So that's, yeah, exactly. Bosses will tell you get an ABN so they can be dodgy. Yeah. All right. So let's assume we're employees here because hopefully you are, and that's how most people are. Let's have a look at exactly how much you should be paid. So as I've said, you need to get at least the minimum wage, plus you may be entitled to a higher minimum wage depending on the type of job you have and the hours you work. So the national minimum wage for a full-time or part-time worker is $21.38 an hour, which works out to $772 for a week. And for that casual worker, it's $26.73 an hour. So that's before tax. And those minimum wages apply to all workers in Australia if you're on a visa or not, if you're over 18. Except there's some people who are on like a traineeship or an apprenticeship. Sometimes they have lower rates, but generally, if you're not getting paid at least that much, you need to, get some advice. So again, this is a slide I went to earlier. If you look at your award, you might be entitled to a higher rate. So for instance, in the retail award, I was looking at it earlier, I think that the minimum casual rate is actually around $29 an hour. So it can be higher than that figures I just gave you before, depending on the kind of work you do. And also, especially in industries like hospitality and restaurants, you might be entitled to what they call penalty rates, which is basically recognizing that you should get paid more for working hours that are a bit, inconvenient for people. So say if you're working very late at night or very early in the morning or on a public holiday, there will be extra amounts that you should get paid per hour for working those hours. So again, the award will tell you exactly what you should get paid for working those kind of different times. And allowances as well. So that's things like if you are doing a trade and you have to use your own tools, you might get paid a set allowance per week because you're using your own tools. So they are covered in the award as well. And look, okay, it is very complicated. I'm a lawyer and I look at these awards all week and I get quite bamboozled by them sometimes, so don't feel bad if you don't understand them. They're very complicated. So do have a look, but if you don't understand, either call the Flag Ombudsman or have a look at their information, or definitely give us a call and we can help you figure out exactly what you're owed.
Just a question. Yeah. In general, for let's say for overtime at any employers. Yeah. Usually it is known or standard that they will pay extra money for the overtime after duty, or it's depend on the agreement between the employer and the employee? Yeah,
very good question. So overtime is another rate that will be specified in the awards. And if you're full-time, sometimes your contract will say 38 hours a week plus reasonable overtime. So that means you might work an extra couple of hours a week here and there, depending on the workflow of the business, and that's kind of acceptable under your contract. But reasonable is the key there. So if you're working many more hours, then you should be paid an overtime rate. Or if again, it depends on the award and the kind of job you do. But for instance, if you work a really long shift, like more than 10 hours, there will be a higher rate, like a double time kind of rate, that you should be paid for those extra hours you've had to stay back at work. So it really does depend on whether you're full-time or part-time, or whether you're casual, and what the award says about your hours of work and when overtime rates apply. But really good point as well.
It will be mentioned usually in the contract about overtime being used.
Yeah. So if you've got a contract, usually, like I said, they have those words around reasonable overtime. But hopefully it will say if you're entitled to extra payments, in overtime, or it might have things like a common one is time off in lieu. Have you heard about that? It's like, or flex time. Sometimes where you work extra time, then your employer will give you the equivalent time off on another day. So so that it really have a good read of your contract and see what it says. But if you feel like it's a bit unfair and you're working a lot extra for no extra pay or no extra time off, then it might be a good idea to get some advice around it. Yeah, very good question. So I just wanted to cover super as a thing. Do you all know about super? Have you heard about super? No, that's okay. So super is something. It's money put aside by your employer for your retirement. So employers have to pay you not only your wages, they also have to pay you super of at least 10.5% of your base rate, and put that into your superannuation account. So that should appear on your payslip as well. So we'll go into that next, actually. So on your payslip, firstly, it's important to know that you should get a payslip, even if you're getting paid cash in hand. Your employer should give you a payslip, and that payslip should have details about the business, about your rate of pay, about how many hours you work, and then as we've been talking about, how much super they've paid you. So when you start work, you should give your employer your tax file number and details of your superannuation account, and then they should withhold tax from your pay and give that to the tax office, and they should also pay you that 10.5% of super into your super account. So it's really important that you have a look at your payslip and make sure that your rate of pay is correct and that your employer is doing what they should. And keep an eye on your super account as well and make sure they're actually putting it in there. So don't have any questions about that?
Yeah, I just have a question.
Yeah.
Now, so the salary, it will be base salary and superannuation, which is like retirement, right?
Yeah.
The salary will be divided, let's say, mainly the base salary, and then there is something will go to superannuation.
Yes, yeah.
Superannuation account, I will do this thing by how I will do with this one. I know about tax. Tax number, I think, something like this. I create one.
Yeah.
But superannuation account, there is way also I should create account. I mean, because it's the first time I hear about this one.
Oh, good. Well, that's really good. That's really important. So, look, if you have questions about super, it's probably best to call the ATO because they look after superannuation as well as tax. But generally speaking, yeah, you can do some research around which superannuation company is best for you. Often the unions have super accounts, like you might have heard of like Host Plus or gosh, I can't remember the other ones, but yeah, there's different choices out there for you. So the idea is that your employer takes this extra, pays you an extra 10.5%. They put it in that super account and it sits there and gets interest and interest, and eventually by the time you retire you've got a little nest egg there to help you throughout the rest of your life.
Okay. You mean he is the one who will choose the company who is handling the superannuation?
Sometimes employers will have a default account that they suggest you join, but it's your choice completely. So you don't have to go with the one that the employer tells you to join. Yeah, so again, I'm not an expert in super, but I'm glad we've told you about it today. So yeah. Yeah, so go off and have a look, and there's lots of information on the ATO website around super as well. So yeah, very, very good question. So yeah, basically once you have your super though, make sure that your employer is actually putting the money in there. So they have to put it in at least every 3 months. So it's not every week like your pay. It's something around the bookkeeping, but they at least have to put it in there every 3 months. So be careful because sometimes employers don't. And then, you can work for years and years and go check your super and there's nothing there. So if you think your employer isn't paying your super, you can either ring the ATO who can chase it up for you, or you can ring us or your union or whoever, especially if you think you haven't been paid right in other ways as well. Yeah. So yeah, just be aware. Yeah, again, super is a whole nother topic in itself. We could. Oh yeah, I just wanted to tell you about as well. The Fair Work Ombudsman site has this excellent app you can download on your phone, and it helps you keep track of the hours you're working. And again, it's available in lots of different languages as well. So it can be a really good way of you keeping track of your hours. So when you get your payslip, you can compare your records with what your employer is actually paying you. And if you do have a claim that they haven't been paying you properly, then you've got that evidence there of what hours you actually worked. So check that out too. Okay, so we're going to move into some other kind of entitlements now. So I wanted to mention as well about the idea of breaks during your day. So breaks and rosters, they're other conditions of your employment that are talked about in those awards. So generally speaking, workplace laws recognise that workers need a break during the day to keep yourself safe at work, keep both your brain, and if you're doing some kind of dangerous job, make sure that you're not too tired to do your job safely. So your award should tell you how many breaks you should get. So generally generally, it's usually around 5 hours. If you work more than 5 hours, you should get one paid break of at least 30 minutes. That seems to be the general kind of minimum. But you might also get rest breaks, which are a 10-minute paid break. So that's kind of recognizing that you might get up during your shift and go have a cup of tea or go to the bathroom or whatever, just a little break from your work. So sorry, a meal break is actually an unpaid break. I think I confused myself. So that doesn't count as timed work. So sorry, to summarize there, if you work more than 5 hours, you should at least get one unpaid break, but you might also be entitled to a short paid break just to, do what you need to do or eat some food or whatever. So when we're talking about meal breaks, you don't have to eat a meal during your meal break. It's just recognizing that you should be allowed to have that unpaid time off to, have a rest or, answer your phone or whatever you need to do. So aside from breaks, the awards have other rules in there, like about rosters. So when I say roster, that's what your boss would give you, saying today, if you're a casual worker, saying you're working Monday, Wednesday, and Friday this week, and give you the times that you're starting. So there's rules in your awards about how much notice your boss should give you of the days you have to work. So and for instance, how much time off you should get in between shifts. So generally you should at least have 12 hours off in between 2 shifts. So again, lots to go into, but do you have any questions about breaks or rosters?
For rosters, it's applied only for the casual work?
Yeah, so
as if I read in some advertised works that there is sometimes roster calling you have to work on Saturday, few hours. You have full time working, but sometimes you need to come on Saturday.
Yeah, good question.
It's called like roster time.
Yeah, so I guess if you're full time or part time, you have that agreed pattern of hours. So you might be working, Monday to Friday as every week. But sometimes, yes, the contract might say, we also occasionally need you on a Saturday. And really, I'd suggest your contract should say how much you get paid for that Saturday, or if you get time off in lieu or whatever. So just because your contract says that doesn't mean you have to work every Saturday for, as part of your weekly wage. It's kind of giving you notice that occasionally they will ask you to work Saturday, but they certainly can't make you work every Saturday. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if they need you to work a Saturday, they should probably give you, at least a week's notice, for example, of we need you to work next Saturday. They shouldn't just, usually, like I said, there should be something in your contract or something in the award which says you need a certain amount of time notice before you have to rock up on a Saturday. Does that make sense? Yeah, cool. Okay.
Just I would add, should they be as normal rate per hour or by the law, or not necessarily? They can be the same.
For the Saturday?
Yeah, for the Saturday.
Yeah. So the award would usually have a separate rate for a Saturday, like a penalty rate. Remember I was talking about that before. But yeah, it depends on your employment contract. So we're getting into a bit of a complicated area here, but you can't. Okay, so if you're working full time, right, and you've got
full-time.
Yep. Yeah. So you're working full time. You've got a set pay for your week. What I suggest you do is compare your set rate under your contract, compare that to the award, including what the penalty rate is on a Saturday. And then if the award is more than your contract, then you're not getting paid right. But generally, if you're under a contract, hopefully you're getting paid more than the award overall, including those times when you have to work a bit on a Saturday. It is really complicated. It's probably best if we have a look at exactly what you're talking about. I guess the main idea is to make sure that that your contract talks about working on a Saturday, and that you understand how you're getting paid for that, whether it's extra payment or time off in lieu. Just have a look at your contract and make sure your contract is overall better than the award. It gets really complicated, so hopefully I've simplified that enough for today.
At the end, the employer, he is the one who will decide if it is the same normal or he will pay like penalty, what you said, right? He has the right to decide on Saturday days that he will pay for me as normal the other days, or he will pay something extra, or he has the right to decide.
Well, it's complicated. So I think it depends what your contract says. So it can't just be your boss being like, come in on Saturday, we'll sort it out. It should really be agreed with you beforehand. And like I said, your contract has to be better than the award. It's complicated.
No, I get your point. It depends on the contract and what you will agree with the boss.
So if you're asked to work on a Saturday, like I said, your boss should tell you about it in advance, and usually you should agree with it. It's hard for your boss to force you to come to work on a Saturday if you don't agree. But it depends on the words of your contract and what you've agreed to when you've signed your contract. So I guess just to wrap that up, so generally speaking, just remember that the award sets out the minimum. So even if you've signed a contract, that can't be worse than the award. So there's a way of looking at it and figuring out whether overall your contract is better than the awards. But generally speaking, you need to at least get paid what the award says. All right, I'm going to move on because we're getting deep into contract interpretation here. So look, I just wanted to mention as well, there's other workplace rights in terms of being safe at work, okay? And when we're talking about being safe at work, we're talking both physically and mentally as well. So there are workplace laws to help protect you from being harassed, like sexual harassment, or being bullied, or being discriminated against as well, on the basis of race or sex or gender or a number of things. And so there's also, of course, laws to make sure that your workplace is physically safe, like rules around, proper standards for workplaces in terms of safety. So again, it's really important to remember that if you don't feel safe at work, you should make that, raise the issue with your boss. You don't have to keep working somewhere if you're not safe. It's really important. So when we talk about discrimination, there's that list there on the screen. They're the protected attributes that the law says that someone can't discriminate against you for. So like I said, the race, sex, age, if you have a disability, if you're married or not, if you have a family or if you're pregnant, what religion you practice, your political opinion, or where you're from, your social origin. So if you're at work and you feel like you haven't been treated equally compared to someone else, or if you're experiencing negative comments or bullying, then please call us and we can chat with you about whether you're in fact being discriminated against. And it's important to know as well, it's not only once you have the job. If you're applying for a job and you feel that you haven't been treated fairly, or you feel like you didn't get the job because of one of those reasons, then again, give us a call, because they can't discriminate against you when you're going for a job either. So a really common one we see at the Working Women's Centre is when someone is pregnant and going for a job, or if you're going for a job that the boss might ask you, are you planning on having a family? They're not allowed to ask these things, and they're not allowed to discriminate against you for those things. So yeah, I wanted to cover off on some kind of warning signs as well. If you're at work, just keep in mind that these things are not okay. And I guess, you know, if these things are happening at work, it might be that your employer is, you know, a bit dodgy, so to speak, not doing the right thing, might not be paying you well. So it might be a good idea to get some advice. But if you, for instance, aren't allowed to have any time off because you're sick, or if your employer, you know, bullies you and hassles you to be available to work all the time, if you're casual, if you don't feel safe at work, or if you feel you're treated differently, if you're feeling really upset and, you know, feeling really emotional after going to work because of how you're treated at work or the workload, you know, these things mean that perhaps the workplace isn't healthy and safe for you, and you should get some advice. As well as, you know, some things that people on visas sometimes experience. Your boss isn't allowed to withhold your passport or your personal items. They aren't allowed to ask you to pay money to them for giving you a job. Sometimes that happens where employers say, well, I'll pay you this much money, but so it looks official on the books, but then you have to pay me back so much money because really, you know, I'm doing you a favor by giving you a job. You know, that kind of thing is completely illegal. You can't pay them to, you know, for anything to do with your visa, for instance. And employers can't promise you anything to do with your visa. Okay, so they can't promise that that you'll get a permanent residence visa, for example. That's only Home Affairs that decides things around that. So yeah, if you're experiencing anything like that, it might be good to have a chat with us and get some advice. So if you feel like things aren't quite right at work, what can you do to look after yourself? I think it's really important to obviously seek support from your friends or family or community centres like this. Make sure you're, you know, emotionally supported to start with. Keep notes and records of what's happening. So at the end of the day, you might like to write down what happened at work today, who said what. So you've got that record there if you need it down the track. Keep any emails or texts that your boss sends you, especially if it's, you know, around your pay or something like that. That will be really good evidence down the track. And if you feel like perhaps your boss isn't taking you seriously, say for instance when you're asking about your pay rate, it's a good idea to put it in writing to them, because that's really good evidence that you've tried to tell them that things aren't right and they've ignored you. So that means that they're purposely breaking the law. But I do want to make sure you know as well, like you were saying earlier, you don't have any pay slips or records of your employment or anything, and that's okay as well, all right? So obviously if you're in the moment and you've been here today and you know it's a great idea to keep these records, but if you don't have them, that's okay as well. It doesn't mean you can't put in a claim, because you yourself, you're a witness about what happened. Okay, so if you came to us and we decided to help you with an underpayment claim, you'd be taking like a statement, and it would be you telling what happened. And then if it went to court, the judge would be comparing, you know, what you said as a truthful witness against what the dodgy employer said. So even if there's no paperwork, please don't let that stop you from getting advice, because you can still do something about it. And the last point there, sometimes people, and fair enough, they just want to quit and get out of there and then call up for advice later. But if possible, try and get some advice before you quit, because some claims, like workers' compensation, mean that if you quit, you can kind of, it can limit the kind of claims you can put in. So just if you can hang in there and get some advice before you make that decision to quit, that's usually a good way to go. Does anyone have any questions about that so far? No? All right, we'll keep going. Nearly at our end of our hour. Oh, this is very important information as well. So the Fair Work Ombudsman, which is the government body that educates and workers around workplace laws and gives advice to people, they have an agreement with Home Affairs that if you go to the Fair Work Ombudsman and seek help because your employer hasn't been doing the right thing, that they have an agreement with Home Affairs that it won't affect your visa, okay? So even if you've breached your work-related visa conditions. So again, international students during COVID was a really good example. Sometimes they can only work a certain number of hours per week, but they were forced to work more hours than that because they needed money to live, right? So if they went to the Fair Work Ombudsman, even if they worked more hours than their visa said they could, because they were just trying to get paid the minimum wage, yeah, Home Affairs and the Fair Work Ombudsman have agreement that is fine. So no one's going to penalise you for seeking help because of your workplace rights, even if you've breached your visa conditions to do with work. So it's really important to know. So yeah, as long as you're going to the Fair Work Ombudsman and there's no other reason to cancel your visa, you can seek that help without any worries about your visa. And of course, you can talk to us as well. And we are completely independent from the Fair Work Ombudsman. We would never go to them or another government department or your boss or anything. We're completely confidential. So if you're not sure what to do and you're a bit worried, then please, of course, feel free to call us to start with. Whoops, went too far. Okay, so I just wanted to finish with when we're talking about claims, like not getting paid properly or being discriminated against, there's different legal timeframes for putting in those kind of claims. So it's always best to seek advice quickly and seek advice before you resign. But I just wanted to quickly go through some of those. So most importantly, if you have been fired from work and you don't think it's fair, there's only 21 days to put in a claim, 3 weeks. So it's really not a very long period of time. And so many people don't know that. I didn't know that before I started this job. So it's not very much time. So if you've been fired, please get advice quickly within those 3 weeks so that you can look into whether you have an unfair dismissal claim, like the way you were fired wasn't fair, or if you were dismissed for raising a workplace right, like I was talking about, asking a question of your boss, or because of a reason that's discrimination. So there's 2 different kinds of claims, and again, it's a bit complicated, but just remember, if you've been fired, 21 days, so get advice very quickly. If you haven't been paid properly, much kinder time frame. You can go back up to 6 years, so it's quite a long time. So that's 6 years from the date you lodge your claim. You can go backwards. So even if you're not working there anymore, yeah, you can try and we can help you figure out how much you should have got paid, including interest and all those penalty rates and super, and help you lodge your claim in the South Australian Employment Tribunal to try and get some of that money back, or hopefully all of it. But yeah, just remember 6 years is quite good. In terms of bullying, so workers' compensation, I haven't gone into great depth about that, but it's important not to resign. If you're feeling bullied and you feel like, obviously seek support first from your doctor or your family and friends, but just, yeah, try and get some advice before you make any final decisions. There's other options about bullying as well, like, again, there's a stop bullying order from the Fair Work Commission, or you can go to Safe Work SA, who you can tell them about the bullying, but mostly they do. If your workplace is physically unsafe, if you're concerned about the way things are done at your work in terms of safety, you can make a report to them, and they will go visit your workplace and investigate and make sure that that it's safe. Discrimination claims up to 24 months, so 2 years. So again, you've got a little bit more time to get some advice. There's only 12 months in the Equal Opportunity Commission, which is the state-based jurisdiction. So again, it's best to get advice sooner rather than later, and we can advise you which is the better path to go down. But just remember perhaps at least 12 months from the last act of harassment or discrimination to be safe. So just wrapping up, if you need help, who can help you? We can help you. Please give us a call. Initially we give 30-minute free legal advice appointments, and we have interpreters who we can call on the phone to help. So yeah, please do call us if you need. You also might be a member of a union, and we'll go into what a union is in the next couple of slides. And of course, the Fair Work Ombudsman has a lot of different information and videos in many different languages. And I've just taken a screenshot there of some information and video there in Arabic, but there's plenty of different languages there for you to access as well. And they have it, I don't know if you can see at the top, there's that little thing that says English. You can translate the whole site into your language if you need to, so including the awards as well. So really good resource there. I'm not sure, has anyone heard of union, like what a union is at all? No? No. That's okay, that's why I'm here. So when we're talking about unions, a union is like an organisation of workers who have joined together and kind of act as together to achieve common goals like better pay or better working conditions. So there's a number of different unions depending on what kind of job you do. Like there's a retail workers union. I'm part of what the Australian Services Union, which covers a number of different kinds of work. But so yeah, you can call Australian unions, which is the federal kind of one, to figure out which union is right for you here in South Australia. But generally speaking, you can join the union and the union can negotiate on behalf of you and your fellow workers about your pay rates with your boss. And they can also give you individual assistance as well if you need. So commonly at the Working Women's Centre, we will get calls from people who have workplace meetings, like a disciplinary meeting. They've gotten in trouble and they have to go to a meeting with their boss and perhaps, you know, get a written warning or something like that. We can't go to those meetings with you, but unions do have the power to go to the workplace and do that kind of thing. So yeah, if you're interested in joining the union, then do look into it more. But yeah, it's good insurance kind of to have, I suppose, of, you know, extra help if you need it there in your workplace. So that's what a union is. Yeah, there's our numbers as well. So you can either go to our website or give us a call and we can make an appointment for you. And we have extra information on our website as well. So look, I think that's about wrapped it up really. So I'm more than happy to stick around and have a chat if you've got extra questions. But do our online people have any questions?
Does anyone have any final questions? Okay.
Thank you very much.
No, that's okay. You're very welcome.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming along.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kylie. Really appreciate
not
your
at
time.
all. I guess I'll turn myself off. Thank you, online people.